Hello and welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. If you just tuned in, we are discussing the whole topic of International Women's Day. And of course, we do have three iconic guests in our studio. And of course, our guests did have a few differences of opinion, which we did discuss. And we're going into another topic now, Sam.
Yes, we are going to discuss the Merge Lanka Foundation and the work they do with Amanda. So Amanda, if you could, you did explain to us what the foundation does. If you could go into detail about what the girls have gone through and what they've done and the story behind the foundation.
So basically the foundation was started, like I said, by an American girl. She was placed in a home for teenage mothers, and what she witnessed was extremely horrifying. She saw 12, 13, 14-year-old girls that were pregnant by their fathers, by their uncles, by their brothers. And a lot of them were experiencing a lot of trauma, post-traumatic stress, and they would, they would go into fits, and they would have just a lot of issues were surfacing that Alia could see. And she actually was a jewelry maker from the time that she was 7 years old. So she brought some beads and some wire, and she started beading with them. And one of the first participants said that it really freed her mind. And what we saw was that beading is like an art therapy. It's like a creative outlet. And the beading class started, and from there it kind of evolved into something called Beads to Business, which is a full business course. The girls learn everything about cost evaluation, hidden costs, marketing, logo development. And through that, jewelry is used as a teaching tool. And so inside of the shelter, there's a simulated economy. One girl plays a banker, shopkeeper, there's a buyer, and there's fake money that's actually circulated. And in reality, the jewelry is sold, and a bank account is opened for the girls, and that savings she can access when she's 18.
Amanda, just something I picked up from what you said, therapy. Now in Sri Lanka, in terms of therapy, it is my opinion that we don't see it as much as internationally. Of course, a lot of people go through a lot of horrific experiences, things that are unspoken of, to an extent where they even go into suicidal thoughts. But what is the kind of help that's available in the country for people like them?
Yeah, we were just discussing this. So, as you guys know, Sri Lanka is one of the highest countries for suicide. So there is a gap between Western medicine and what's going on here as far as mental health. We can see that there's a lot of cases where there's clinical depression. When you have a very severe depression, you are at risk for suicide, and at that point is when you should go under a counselor.
And also, going to a counselor, a psychologist or psychiatrist is something within culture in this country, something which is looked down upon.
Yeah.
What do you think as a country we could do to improve the situation in terms of telling, hey, listen, if you have a problem, you can actually go out there and approach someone. And it is not shameful to, get help.
Yeah, especially in terms of women and girls and mothers and women who go through violence. Where do they go? Who do they speak to? Professional help that they can get, because they really need that.
So there's something called the CCC line, which was developed specifically for people that are feeling suicidal inclinations, 24 hours, a professional that they can speak to. But I really think that this, again, I think the importance of education is vital here, because when people are aware of what the symptoms of depression are, they might realize that they may have that. And I think as you become more aware of a disorder, you gain power over that disorder, and you want to fix that disorder. And so I think education is probably the most important thing. There are psychiatrists.
Exactly. On that line, if you guys can tell us from your different perspectives and your different backgrounds working with women, the importance of education and women's empowerment, especially in young girls. Stephanie?
Well, obviously education is the most important thing, if a girl has education, since we're talking about girls, she is not as prone as a girl who's uneducated to fall into situations where either her life is at risk or she gets sexually abused, because I feel education is like the magic wand that can save them, and it's so important that we have girls in the rural areas learning about it, because we were talking about all of this backstage, and in the rural areas, girls who get sexually abused or whatnot, they don't see it as something so bad because they've grown up with it. They're not educated to the fact that it is something which is not normal, which is wrong. You know, they've grown up with it, so it's become something normal or natural to them until they become pregnant. And so it's really important that we have awareness campaigns, know your rights campaigns. People don't have access to this information, and information, like knowledge is gold, and you need it to have a society where, you know, where we can call ourselves properly evolved. You have to focus on your education, and not just education. This is what I say, and you have to say it's right. It has to be critical. People have to have the right to actually differ with an opinion of an instructor, of a professor. Like, you know, I understand your opinion, but this is my opinion and this is wrong. They need to have debate, positive debate, you know, because that's exactly, I mean, this is why we love your opinion. You know, it shows you both sides of the spectrum, so that way you can make an informed decision and you're not just being a sheep and following one side.
Okay, I'm going to deviate to a different topic now. I think we've been discussing some really hard issues, and we will continue to do so. Now, in terms of, if we take society in general, of course there's a lot of issues that are faced, but if you take things like little minor issues which are, I would say, maybe not really given a lot of attention in society, or we don't know, I'll get your opinion on that, is chivalry. Do you think chivalry is dead?
Are we talking about in Sri Lanka, or are we talking about
in general?
I'm talking about in the Sri Lankan context.
No, I don't think it's dead. I think that chivalry is a very, I think it's a very broad term. So I think it's interpreted in a lot of different ways. Movie, storybook way is like a Prince Charming. So I think in some ways chivalry is only shown in an intimate relationship. But I think you're talking about social chivalry.
Yes, I'm talking about manners in general. I mean,
I think Vazam is trying really hard to see if it's okay to open the door.
Yeah, actually, because see, this is my personal belief. I believe that, you know, it is important that men in general know how to treat a woman right, because you do face situations in the country also where you go into a bus and sometimes you're not even offered a seat if you're a woman, or sometimes, you know, you're harassed inside the bus, and that is
even worse, if
completely
you're
against
a pregnant woman, you're not offered a seat.
So I think, I mean, it would be important, this is my opinion, I think it would be important for, you know, the male population to
what
also
is your opinion about chivalry
understand that it is how important it is to treat a woman.
I'll just give you an anecdote. Okay. 2 days ago I was talking to someone who travels by bus. She's a woman. And she said, do you know, madam, you can't go by bus anymore in the evening because people come and they press against you and I'm harassed. You cannot go. You should try going in a bus in the evening. Women cannot travel. So within that context, I think even talking about chivalry is, you're talking about opening a door. Yes, please do. But we have a bigger problem where women of Sri Lanka cannot get into a bus in the evening. Now I must be honest and say this was somebody, so I don't know what is going on, but what she said is, if you do, I mean, you talk about feminism, you try traveling in a bus, you'll see the problem. We cannot stand because the whole crowd gets in and we are harassed.
But would you say, I'm sorry Sam, would you say that some of these harassments are also taking place because some males don't have the decent chivalrous act?
I think the foundation,
of course,
I think the foundation of chivalry is respect.
Absolutely.
If you don't have respect, you are not going to be chivalrous. You need to know, I think we'll all agree here, that you have to respect a woman. You're not opening the door because she cannot open it. You're respecting her by opening the door. You're respecting her by giving her your seat, the same way you respect our elders. I think that is what chivalry is.
But I also think that chivalry, I agree with you. I think it can be used as a conditioning tool. I think if you learn basic manners, and chivalry in a sense, it's not saying that a woman cannot open a door, but it's saying that you do give a different, not a special, but a different attention to a woman and a different type of respect. I think you're spot on.
Drawing out of personal experiences, for example, now if I were to travel with my mother, for example, now this is the way I was brought up when I was a kid, where if she found me not opening a door for a woman or not holding the door when she's behind me, she would yell at me and she'd say, that's not the way to treat a woman. And of course it's from education from childhood which actually conditions our mind to treat women right. So do you agree with me if I say that even kids nowadays should be taught a little bit of chivalry?
Of course. Yeah, definitely. I think that there should be gender classes actually for both sexes from a very young age that does gender conditioning, that talks about all of these issues, not just chivalry.
But another argument that lots of women's rights, very hardcore women's rights activists say is that chivalry is also a form of positive discrimination. You are opening a door for a woman, you are reinforcing the fact that she is weaker than you. By standing up and giving a seat, you're saying that she is not strong enough to stand. See, what do you have to say about that?
I think that's very extreme.
I think that is, because honestly, I guess you can call me old-fashioned, but there is a difference between men and women. There's a reason why we're labeled differently. We have different, we're made differently. There is a difference. We can't say we're 100% equal in every single way in terms of physically and the way our bodies are and whatnot. So I feel like, you can't just... sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay.
No, may I just jump in?
Yes,
of course, physically we are different.
Yeah.
But I do think there's a gendering process going on where kids are like,
you're socialized.
you give a doll to women, little girls normally. I have not seen many parents give a doll to a boy. You give cars, and God forbid you give guns now to little men. So we are actually, you're gendered. It's a verb. I'm using it as a verb here. You gender a child, so that we are like, when we have children, you think it's naturally the mother who has to do everything and the father goes out and works. Yes, correct. I'm the only one who can suckle my child. That's true. But the fact that the father cannot bathe it or dress it, no. That's because it has been, the father from childhood has not been given a doll and say bathe it, because oh gosh, that's a boy. So what I'm saying is, I agree that there are differences, but the gendering is a social activity that happens very much here.
That is, I completely agree.
Yeah, even
happens all over the
I'm afraid again we have to take a short commercial break. We really don't want to go into the break, but we have to.
Yeah, the discussion's just getting interesting.
Exactly, but I have to take a break. So we'll come back and we'll continue this on the other side. This is Good Morning Sri Lanka.